Hello, this is Edward James Tagg, and today I'm giving a talk called Angelic Shared Parallel Thinking. Or I could say Angelic Shared, blended thinking. But basically it's what I teach and what I experience when I'm communicating with Mother Mary, my guardian angel, or whatever term you want to use, or spirit guide. So I'm now sharing on YouTube, so remember to like and hit that bell notification and subscribe, as they say. So it's going to get really, really busy. So these talks are really exciting. This is probably the most advanced angel communication lesson you will ever hear on the internet or anywhere around the world. Now, even as I say that, Mother Mary is in my ear and saying, be careful, don't do any boasting, don't go too far. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Mother Mary is literally in my consciousness as a shared, parallel and blended experience. And I'll talk more about that. So even as I make statements, she's making corrections. And so I'll talk more about that. And that's what all this lesson will be like. It'll be about beginners all the way through to advanced. And you may relate to it if you're in the New Age movement, channeling angels or whatever. And you may relate to it if you're a Christian, if you follow Jesus and you minister to people and then you feel inspired. So it might be all or none of those experiences. But I run a group called PASI, which is Palladians and Syrians International, and it's mostly for starseeds. And I do teach mostly starseeds, but this is reaching everybody. And I'll quickly say hello to Gun, Britt and other people who watch, but I won't get too caught up and say too many hellos. I do get messages in between. Okay. So what sort of people can have this type of experience? Now, excuse me, just got out of the bath. What sort of people can have this type of experience? Well, most people have this experience. Now, I need to kind of reiterate before I start that there's four basic classifications of humans on planet Earth. There's regular humans, and they're created, but they're also on an evolutionary path. So some of them have a very low vibration and they're working on their soul development, and they're here on Earth. And they visit other planets, for holidays and what have you. And then there's starseeds like Syrians and Palladians, like myself and the group that I run. And then there's 5, 6, 7, 8% we kind of theorized are actually reptilians. So there was a group of Palladians that chose to live in caves, and they damaged the portion of the brain that processes love, and they became robotic, and they had a galactic war anyway. So this planet is also have some control over reptilians, and that's what it's all about. So they obviously get thoughts from their other reptilian friends, but so that's what are the sort of people that can have this type of experience? Well, regular humans can and can't, and it all depends on how negative and how positive their thinking is. So you've got 5 classifications, or you've got more. You've got the primitive souls and baby souls and young souls and mature adult, and old souls, and they all are in different ranges of consciousness of their experience. So anyway, but I won't get too caught up in that. I'm just going to talk about the lesson and the experience. So basically, what sort of thinking are most humans in? What sort of mindset are they in? And I'm going to compare that and help you understand how you transition into a blended angel experience. So most humans are heavily influenced by media. They might watch, I was going to watch Midsummer Murders on TV last night because it goes back to 1979 in London. When I left London, it was a bit sentimental. But if there's anything negative, it impacts on me, and I tend to stop. But most people, I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people are watching some form of media, and in all forms. And that media can sometimes make your thinking quite negative, as I'm sure you know. And so obviously when you're in that negative state, it's very, very hard to have a blended experience with, you know, a Palladian and Syrian guide. You know, it's very, very hard. You've got to stop. You know, I literally used to do that. I used to clap, and that's actually one technique that really, really works. So if you're getting attacked by demonic voices, you know, this was something that happened 24 years ago. I'd literally, no, actually earlier, more like 30 years ago, I'd just go clap, and I'd stop, and I'd walk outside the house. And the other thing we can do is we can get caught in what I term, and I don't know if psychologists term this, and I call it a thought cascade. Now, everybody's had thought cascades, and some people, maybe some psychiatrists will actually give it a DSM, you know, 4R or whatever, a 5 or whatever it is, and they'll give it a classification. But it's kind of that fantastical or that magical thinking, or it's more like daydreaming. So, how many of you might just, you know, be sitting on a beach and see a seagull flying by, and then you watch the seagull, and then you think about how pretty it is, and then you think about watercolor painting and said, oh, maybe I should take up watercolors, and maybe I should start painting seagulls on a beach, and how pretty that would be. And then you think about your auntie who used to be a painter, and then you think, oh, well, she wasn't a very nice person. She used to argue with my sister. And then you think about your sister and how you haven't contacted her for a long time. And then it's coming up to Christmas, and then you think, oh no, I've got my Christmas shopping list, I haven't done that, and then I haven't taken my car to be serviced before I travel up north, and then you say, oh, travelling up north, yeah, I went to that museum where they had chainsaws, and you start thinking about chainsaws. So you've sat there for 5 or 10 minutes or even an hour, and you've had this thought cascade where one thought links to the next, and you started thinking about seagulls on the beach, and then you're starting to think, and then at the end you're thinking about chainsaws, and then you say to yourself, how did I get here? And then you take your mind back and you track and say, oh, that's how I got off the track when I was first talking about seagulls. The point I'm trying to make is that if you're in a thought cascade, there's usually 2 reasons of why we do this. One is just old-fashioned daydreaming, is that we do it for pure entertainment, and because the mind is lazy and it just loves to go off on tangents. And the other reason we do what I call a thought cascade is we do that because we're fearful, because we have a problem-solving scenario, like I have to travel up north and I'm worried about something being delivered by the courier, and what happens if I'm not here. And then you go into a thought cascade, and I ask my best friend to check on my mail every day. I don't do this, by the way, because I'm not in that thinking anymore. So then you say, well, have I asked my friend too many favours? Maybe that's not appropriate. And then you kind of get into this really, really bad mind control thought cascade where you're just running on fear. And you're running through scenarios and scenarios and scenarios to try and problem solve something that in all likelihood will never come to bear in your life. So these are examples of ways that humans or people, so it's very humid in New Zealand, get caught up in their own trapped mind. And in meditation they talk about what they call the monkey mind, you know, the busy mind, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. So they recommend, you know, a course in mindfulness or a course in meditation, and I'm not here to promote, you know, mindfulness or meditation. I'm just discussing what sort of thinking takes us away from angelic, shared, blended, helpful communication internally. So one of the ways to do that is just to make a big change and just agree to stop it, and just to bring them more into your life. And there are many ways you can do that. One of the best things you can do is to tidy your house. So have you ever noticed that when you tidy your house, you feel really good about yourself, and you know, you've done the dishes, you vacuumed the floor, you might have even polished the floor with some Johnson floor wax, and you feel really great. And so this feels really great to have a nice clean house. I think I'm going to have a brand new start. So last night I thought I'm going to start doing ballet again, and I'd have to remember to get back to my opera lessons, and I'll do this, 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 and this. And then when you make a new plan for a new start, then the angels, they come in more. You know, they say, great, go for it, you know. I mean, my angel's there with me all the time, but with different people, sometimes your negative thinking pushes them out. So then basically, what is the blended, shared, angelic parallel thinking experience like? Well, sometimes they just put a thought in your mind. And, do it now. So I call it do it now. So like last night, I communicated with my angels through what I call the book method, and it's called Precision Clairvoyant Bibliomancy, where various pages and books give me angelic messages. And I did that about 7 o'clock. Sorry, I did that about 7 times, about 9 o'clock last night. And one of the things they told me is that I was heavily dehydrated. As you can see, it's really, really sticky, this humid weather in New Zealand. So Mother Mary told me to drink more water. So last night I got a lemon out of the freezer, and I had it soaking all night so it would defrost. And in the morning, when I got out of bed, the first thing she did, she put the thought in my head, go on, I know it's really early, I know it's 6:30, but basically go and squish that lemon and put some water in the fridge so it'll be nice and cool, but do it now. And I was having this thought in my head, and that's what we do when we have an angel experience. We're not accustomed to having these new thoughts in our head, and we have an ego, and we want to have control over our own thinking, and saying, well, my thinking is my own. How dare these thoughts comes in, even if they're positive, constructive thoughts that can help you in your life, you still sometimes have this ego defending situation where, oh, I know that sounds positive and that's, rah, 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 but I want to be in charge of my life. And it's part of your dysfunctional, wounded inner child that's running the show. And when you learn to nurture and have command over your inner child, that's not a problem anymore. So you got to understand that process of how we kind of actively resist our angels based on, our ego. I want to be in control of my thoughts. So then what you do is you find yourself having this debate with yourself. So you don't even know where that debate is coming from. Some people just think it's your conscience, but it's actually your angels. So the thought in the morning was to squeeze the lemon and put some lovely water in the fridge, which I did. And then I was going to go and walk outside and admire my roses in the garden because it was raining last night. And so, but Mother Mary said to put the other thought in my head, no, have a quick drink now. And I kind of debated with her and I said, well, no, but it's not gone cold yet. And then Mother Mary put this other thought in my head, well, it doesn't matter. It's very important that you get hydrated now, even though it's not cold. It's best to start a little bit. So that's one of the experiences you have when you're working with angels. You get into this ego defending position of like, my thoughts or your thoughts, and then you get into this debate. And what the angels tend to do is they give you their best possible version of how to operate in your life, and they're your conscience and your advisors. But sometimes you'll say, no, I don't want to do it, and your inner child will kind of spit the dummy and kind of push and resist. And your angels are working in your best efforts, in your best interest. Now, what our inner child does is our inner child is scared of losing control because you might give up. Well, it's a funny process with your inner child. It's probably a long conversation. I can talk at another time, but it's far too complicated. But when you understand your inner child's resistance level, you'll understand how to nurture and move beyond that and to live in hope. But it's quite a complex process. I won't talk about this now. And if anybody wants me to help them understand that process of inner child resistance to angelic input, I can go into that. But it's very complicated. So then basically your angels give you the best possible version. And then you get into this argument with yourself, but it's just them trying to help you. Now the other things they do is they give you warnings. So one of the typical warnings they gave me last summer was that I put some netting around my tomatoes because all the birds were eating all my tomatoes. And then I had this vision, there's a blackbird caught in the netting trying to get at the tomatoes. And when I went out there, it was flapping around like crazy, and I gently picked up the blackbird and threw it into the sky. So they'll give you direct visions, and some people would call that a clairvoyant vision. They also give me a future timeline or a future vision of a pending car crash. So like another example is that if you know Glenvar Road in Torbay, and they call it the Glade, and it's this very, very dangerous, windy road with a real tight hairpin bend, and the hairpin bend is on a camber, so you shoot into the corner and you come out of it. But it's got a number of turns, and there's just trees, and it's very dark. So when I come downhill, every time I drive downhill, I check with Mother Mary, and she shows me there's a car at the bottom of the glade, and it's coming up at sort of an average speed, and it's going to be there in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tight hairpin bend, and it's right there. So I know not to shoot into that hairpin bend too tight and too fast, because I'm a little bit of a boy racer even at 58, 57, 58. So they can give you visions of things happening, and that's what that blended experience is like. Is your thoughts. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't own your own thoughts, and it's not any aspect of mental illness. It's a beautiful experience. They say the difference between spiritual enlightenment and mental illness is that people with mental illness are hearing voices from reptilians or demons, and people who are spiritually enlightened or starseeds, they're hearing voices, but they're Palladian and Syrian spirit guides and working for the positive. So the other thing they do is they give me like messages like go shopping or go for a walk, and or they used to give me a lot of messages through movies. So they'd give me this thought, or you just be sitting in your armchair like this, and you think, oh, I haven't been to the movies for a long time. I think I'll go to the picture theatre, as they used to call it. And I think I'll see if there's any superhero movie. There must be a new Avengers or a new Spider-Man or a new Superman movie coming out soon. I'll check on your internet. So, oh yeah, there is. So, or even just go shopping. And I think, well, I've got all my vegetables. Why are you telling me to go shopping now? And then when I get down there, I feel that there's kind of this timing, like a clock in my brain, literally. And as I'm walking, they'll show me a plan of which shops to see in which order. And they want to go to this shop first, and then I cross the street, and there's 2 shops on the left-hand side of the road. And then when I finish there, at the last shop, I feel something important is going to happen. And there's like a timing, like... The other thing, it's really, really good to test yourself, or to train yourself specifically. And the way to grow this technique is, one of the things you can do is you can run a bath, or you can catch buses but never use a timetable. So when you run a bath, or when you put the frying pan on the stove and you turn it up high, and like I did last night, and I weeded the garden, I came in, there's smoke everywhere. But generally, when you turn the bath on and you go for a walk, you've got this clock in your brain. So, well, that bath's getting full. I wonder how full that bath is now. I think it's about 2/3 the way full. And that's a blended experience with your angels. Your angels are showing you, saying, the bath is okay. It's sort of half full, but sort of be ready. The bath is getting fuller. It's about 2/3 the way full now. And go. You might want to turn the bath off. Go, you might want to turn the bath off. Go now, it's overflowing. So that's kind of what a blended shared experience with your angels is like, is they kind of give you a countdown in your brain for things that are pending. And the same thing is with going to the bus stop, is I used to think, I wonder how far the bus stop is away. But sometimes the angels would just say, go, iron your shirt and find your reading glasses and get your, COVID-19, mask, and get your shopping bags and out the door. And, you've got 5 minutes to get out the door. And sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, when's that bus coming? It feels like it's like 23 minutes away. And then you look on your app and it is exactly 23 minutes away. So that's what that feels like. Sorry, it's just so humid, and it's humid here. So that's what it's kind of like. The other thing they do is they give me corrections. Now, by the way, when I go walking, the most important thing you must understand is that I'm always looking for other Syrian and Palladian starseeds, or just very important people that I have to meet. And quite often when I do go shopping, when they show me the timing at that shot, that's precisely, and they'll even show me a position like back wall, turn left, 2/3 in from the right hand corner, and right there'll be a Palladian starseed just shining brightly, and I know who they are even before I've kind of walked into the building, and I can sense their energy. So that's one of the things they do. Now the other things they do is they correct me. They make a correction, and they do this really a lot when I'm doing Facebook Lives. They do it all the time. So the one thing you must never do, see, she's correcting me now. Sometimes every time I'm uttering a sentence halfway through, Mother Mary is correcting me, because truth is obviously very important. And I said one thing you must never do is paraphrase, but I had to modify that sentence. So unfortunately, in the New Age movement, everybody paraphrases, and they paraphrase things that are mostly inaccurate. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, reptilians pretend to be angels, and they channel, and they're very successful at it, and they're all over YouTube. You can find Lee Carroll, channeling Cryon. Who are the other people? Barbara Marcinak, and all of them. And most of them, I'm not going to say who, but most of them are, see, I'm even starting to pick my cuticles because I'm nervous about talking about the subject. So they put that thought in my head, and they say, be careful of what you're saying because you might offend someone. But anyway, regarding paraphrasing, is that most of this channeled material, when they talk about applications of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, like Greg Braden has made lots of so-called applications of the Tower Physics by Fritz Capra, whatever his name is, and Dancing Wooloo Masters by what's his face, so Gary Zukov. But the point I'm trying to make is that in this spiritual industry, unfortunately, a lot of people paraphrase everything, and if you hear the word portals, and if you hear the word quantum, and if you hear the word codes, like healing codes, or this codes, or quantum this or quantum that, or portals, or ascension is another word I don't like. Well, I never like to use the word ascension. I never use the words setting your intentions. I never use manifesting, because all of that language doesn't belong to the language of what I've learned from working with Syrians and Palladian guides. They just don't think like that. So there's a lot of paraphrasing that goes on in this industry that is just, well, I'm not saying that it's bad. Well, it is bad if it's being paraphrased directly from reptilians that are teaching these subjects, but it's not helpful because you're not coming from your own truth. And this is another subject. I don't mean your truth in the sense of the New Age movement, politically correct. Everybody's got a truth, and I don't necessarily mean that. But what I mean is that I believe that whenever anybody's going through a spiritual experience or a spiritual growth, that they should come to that understanding, not just from books and from what they've heard someone say. And far too many people do that. You should do it from direct experience. And that's why when I teach, like here right now, I'm teaching you, like I teach all my students, how to generate your own personal experiences and how to get your own messages from your own guides and how to work direct. Because if you're paraphrasing and if you've read lots of books, like I was working with my spiritual teacher who channels Palladians, and the Palladian guides channeled through automatic writing and said, Edward has read too many books. And I thought, oh, blooming heck. Okay, right. Yeah, because I used to own libraries. I used to own Journal of, social personality and social psychology and psychological bulletins. I had endless libraries. I used to read about animal communication, through gorillas and sign language. So my teacher's Palladian guide said, Edward has read too many books. And that's when paraphrasing is a problem. And they also advised me to study. And then about 10 years later I said, well, how did my studying go? I didn't read many books. And this guide said, yes, Edward, you've done really, really well. You watch people's foibles and quibbles and behaviours and you attend to them and you've learnt from that experience. And they didn't mean to read books. So paraphrasing is not very helpful. And so angels will correct me, or Mother Mary will correct me when I'm talking. So there's things that I know to be true from what I've learnt and what I've got from my spiritual teacher and channeled through Palladians and also through the book technique and talking with Mother Mary. So I've got a lot of knowledge. But sometimes I make reference to things that I read in books many, many years ago that I don't know to be entirely true. Things about genetic engineering in Atlantis, and things about the Space Shuttle Challenger, about the O-ring, about how angels intervened and they stopped. And I heard there was a story about Ronald Reagan sending Star Wars program in space through that Challenger and it was disabled. And also about nuclear bombs in North Korea that they stopped. And I was talking and saying some of these things, and Mother Mary would just say, hold on a minute, that's not entirely true. Occasionally I've said something like, the history of planet Earth right now is kind of winding down and it's sort of coming to an end. And every time I say that, Mother Mary says, don't say that, that's not true. And I thought, well, everybody on the spiritual movement believes that, like the book of Revelation, that this is all, coming to an end. But she said, don't say that, it's too negative, and it's not entirely true. There's a change coming, but it's not like that. So Mother Mary will correct me literally in sentence, mid-sentence, while I'm talking. And she doesn't like me to paraphrase things that I haven't fact-checked. Basically, Mother Mary is my fact-checker. Fact-checker. She fact-checks me on all of my sentences. So that's what it's like to have a blended experience with an angel, is that your advisors, your inspirers, your fact checkers, and sending you warnings. Sometimes when I'm doing these Facebook Lives, there was one 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there were 3 reptilians, somehow 3 reptilian people living on planet Earth in physical bodies. They all jacked in instantaneously, and some of my starseed followers, they just left. And then I found that I was talking, and I just checked some of the names that were coming up, and I looked at their faces, and I couldn't see, because there's small little tiny icons. You can't see a face, but you can get an idea. And then Mother Mary was going, warning, 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 and I just thought, this is weird, this just feels yuck. And I just had a feeling that one of them was a reptilian. I sort of waved that by, but actually there were 3. And then angels will literally shut down technology, and that's what they did. They created some technical problem. It wasn't my battery, it was just a technical glitch, and it paused, and then it came back in again, and I pressed resume, and it continued. But even during the time that it resumed, I had this major warning going, warning, 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 Will Robinson, the robot, lost in space. So that's what they do. If those reptilians were watching in, Mother Mary doesn't want me to be delivering high-level knowledge that reptilians can hijack and piggyback and use, unfortunately. But because I go public and everybody sees it, it's hard to avoid that. So they can shut down technology, but generally they correct me. Now, the other thing they love is that when you're meeting and talking to complete strangers who might be starseeds or trying to inspire people, and then they love it when you inspire people with love. So if I talk about the universe, at the quantum level is all made up of the energy of God, and beyond time and space, and everything is an illusion, but the only thing that's real is love, then I can get really stirred up in my heart and I expand. I become expansive. And Mother Mary, my angels, they really like it when I do that. And they'll even give me full body goosebumps. So I was in Dunedin a few years ago, and I gave this little spiel about love and quantum physics because they were interested. And then I got these full rush of goosebumps up my legs. And I just felt all these warm fuzzies from my angels. So that's what they do. It's getting very, very humid and sticky here. I might even have to put the fan on, but I'll just talk a little bit longer. I'm kind of almost finished. So that's kind of an example. I'll just do a summary. That's what it's like to have a angelic, shared, parallel, blended thinking experience. And that when you're working with angels all the time, It's like that. Now, I was working with Tracy, my colleague, who works with me on PASI, which is Palladians and Syrians International, and we kind of toyed with the idea of thinking about a percentage. Now, could you compare or understand starseeds or people in general of how much blended or shared consciousness they have with their guides? And Tracy checked with her guides and decided that I was spending 70% of my engagement in my thinking with my guides, which is quite a high number. There are other people who are only operating, 10, 20, 30% or whatever other number. So that's a good way to understand if a starseed is active or if someone is working heavily in the astral, just the higher astral with their spirit guides all the time. And so we found out that I am engaging with my guides 70% of the time. Now, not everybody will want to do this. Some people might find it invasive. I experience it very inspiringly and very, a very beautiful experience. Sometimes when I'm in nature and I'm watching a little bird or in the sky, or I'm just connecting to God, or watching a beautiful sunset, my angels, they won't inject. They won't inject in because they know that I'm already connected, because I'm experiencing beauty and joy, and they'll let you have that experience. They'll only inject if they think that you need help. Like this morning, they told me to drink the water immediately because I was getting dehydrated. You can see how humid it is. This is how humid and sticky it is, and it's only just 9 o'clock in the morning. It's just humid. 79% humidity. So that's what they do, and that's how they work. If you want to speak to me directly about more advanced, I shouldn't say more advanced, because these techniques, the way I live my life, is operating now at a very, very advanced level. But you can learn these techniques even if you're a beginner. But it's just a matter of degree. There's almost like a continuum of how much you work with your angels, how much they're shared and blended into your consciousness. I talk now, and I know precisely when Mother Mary is there. I can feel her. Now, do they need to be in the room? Well, sometimes I see blue lights by the side of my television late at night. It just means they're telling me to go to bed. It's getting late, and they'll show me a big purple mist. Or they'll also show themselves up as a royal blue about the size of your fingernail, a piercing blue light, and they're really, really trying to get your attention, so something very important. But my angels don't need to get my attention desperately because I'm connected with them all the time anyway. So that's what it's like to be blended with an angelic consciousness. Now, some might say, well, that sounds a bit like mind control, like someone's controlling you, but it's not. See, what you must understand is that we have free will all around the universe, and on Earth, humans are free to have negative thinking, follow negative media and to be full of fear and worried. But I choose to be shared and blended with angels because they're my family. Like I work in Mother Mary's team. When I go astral travelling at night, there's a team and there's a family experience. So other Syrian and Palladian guides and in human bodies here on Earth, they don't fear losing their sense of individuality. I'm extremely individual. I work on vintage sewing machines. I do ballet lessons. I sing opera. I grow roses. I work in the garage. I just dress in rough old clothes around the home. So I've got a very, very strong individual sense of individuality. So I'm not losing anything. I'm gaining everything. So it's a beautiful way to live. So anyway, if anybody wants to learn some of these techniques, and specifically there are techniques that I teach getting messages to answer your questions, like I've been answering lots of questions for people who are concerned about having the COVID vaccination, and I won't reveal that here because it's so political right now, and I help them through these techniques. And then when people become more advanced, I teach spiritual enlightenment lessons where they literally have a telepathic conversation with their angels. So everything I've been talking about today is not telepathy. the way the thoughts are injected, you could call that telepathy, but it's very low level. It's just like a reminder, go and catch the bus or whatever. But you can also have a running conversation, which I do at the beach late at night when there's no one around, and I literally will just talk to Mother Mary and have a chit chat or a conversation. The words will just be flowing through. So I think I've spoken enough, and like I say, just to summarise, I'm now downloading all of my Facebook Lives onto YouTube. I've learnt recently that you need to have a third-party video downloader app, and then you download, and then you can upload into YouTube. It was really, really annoying. It took me years to learn that. I've been doing these lives for 5 years, and I didn't know that. I don't know why Facebook can't get their act together and learn how to download a video, but they don't do that. You've got to have a third-party video downloader. So that's enough from me. Edward James Tagg, Syrian Starseed, working with Mother Mary. I'll just tell you now because this is one of the first videos, but my Syrian name, that's what's been told to me by my spiritual teachers, Palladian guides who channeled through automatic writing, through a woman who had stigmata that I met 22 years ago. They say that my name up there, because we have two bodies, I have this human body and I'm very much a human, with all the foibles and weaknesses that goes with being human. But I have another body on ship or on planet, and my name there is Nepal, Nepol. So that's me, and I run a group called PASI, Palladians and Syrians International. I teach mostly these angel techniques, inner child therapy, spiritual enlightenment techniques, and I think I've said enough for now. And it's just hot and sticky and muggy and lightly drizzling outside, but very hot, building up to summer. So bye for now, and these videos, which are Facebook Lives, will be uploaded every week to YouTube from now on. So what is it? Notifications, ding-a-ling bell, subscribe, blah-de-blah. Okay, you got the picture. Thank you, have a nice day wherever you are, and have a beautiful, shared, blended, parallel experience with your spirit guides.